It started with a dinner. Just the team, casual, friendly, nothing out of the ordinary. We were celebrating the end of a long, brutal project, and everyone was finally breathing again. The wine flowed. Laughter filled the little Italian place near the office. And somewhere between the second bottle and dessert, I forgot to keep my distance. His name is Julian. He's new, smart, maddeningly observant, and always the last to speak in a room. There's something quiet about him, but not timid. Like he's always watching, always holding back more than he says. And when he looks at you, really looks, it's like standing too close to a fire. That night he sat across from me. Not next to me, not touching. But there was something in the way his eyes lingered a second too long on my smile, like he was memorizing it. And I didn't look away. We talked. Not small talk, real things. Music that makes you cry. Books that leave you aching. People we used to be before life made us careful. Somewhere in the middle of it, I forgot I was married. Not literally. Just the part of me that was supposed to be untouchable started to thaw. He walked me home because it was late and because we lived in the same direction. Or at least that's what he said. The night air was cool, almost sharp, and the streets were quiet enough to hear the sound of our footsteps sink. My heels clicked a little too fast, but I didn't slow down. He didn't offer his arm. Didn't flirt. He just walked beside me. Hands in his pockets, glancing sideways now and then like he was checking to see if I'd say something first. At my door he hesitated. And I should have said good night. I should have gone inside, locked the door and forgotten everything. Instead I stood there. Frozen. And he looked at me, really looked, and something inside me slipped. I told myself it was harmless. That the silence between us at my front step didn't mean anything. But silence can be louder than words. And his silence was deafening. Do you want to come in for a minute? I don't even know why I said it. The words slipped out before I could catch them. Soft, like they didn't want to be noticed. Like maybe if I whispered them they wouldn't count. Julian didn't move. Not right away. His eyes flicked to the door behind me, then back to mine, searching for something. Permission, maybe. Or guilt. And still I didn't take it back. He stepped inside like he was walking into a memory. Slow. Careful. His coat brushed my arm as he passed, and even through the thin fabric of my blouse, I felt it like heat blooming across my skin. I told myself I was just being polite. That he'd sit on the edge of the couch, we'd talk for 5 minutes, and that would be it. But I didn't offer coffee. I didn't mention the time. He walked around my living room like he'd been there before. Like he was trying to picture the life I'd built without him. His fingers grazed the bookshelf, the edge of the fireplace, the photo of my husband and me from last summer, the one I hadn't had the heart to take down. He didn't ask. And I didn't explain. The air was thick. Not uncomfortable, just full. Like it was waiting for something to break. I stood near the window, pretending to check my phone, pretending I wasn't completely unraveling inside. His presence filled the space so completely, I forgot what it felt like to be alone. You're quiet, I said finally. He looked at me. That slow, devastating look. I don't want to say the wrong thing, he said. Not here. Not to you. Something in me flickered. I should have sent him home. I should have remembered the promises I made. But instead I sat down across from him, knees almost touching, heart pounding. And in that tiny space between our bodies, something unspeakable bloomed. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was humming, like a wire pulled too tight. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, but even that felt far away. Time had slipped into something slower, more fragile. Like if I breathed too loudly, it would shatter. Julian leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes flicking to mine and then away again. I should go, he said. But he didn't move. Neither did I. Instead, I asked the question I had no business asking. Why haven't you? His mouth curled into something between a smile and a sigh. Because, he said quietly, if I stand up, I won't want to leave. I felt it in my chest. A pull so strong it made me want to lean in, to close the space between us and find out what his breath would sound like against my neck. But I didn't move. I couldn't. I'd spent years being good, safe, predictable. And yet here I was, sitting across from a man whose voice made my skin tighten and whose presence felt like a dare. A beautiful, slow-burning dare. I don't know what this is, I said, barely above a whisper. He looked at me again. And there it was. That gaze. Not hungry. Not demanding. Just certain. Like he knew how close I was to stepping off the ledge. You don't have to know, he said. You just have to feel it. And I did. God, I did. My heart was pounding in places I didn't know could throb. My skin was overly aware of itself, of him, of the air, of the warmth between us that had nothing to do with the thermostat. He reached up slowly and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers barely grazed my cheek, but I swear it felt like a spark. A warm ripple that slid down my spine and settled low, heavy, undeniable. I closed my eyes, just for a second, just long enough to forget how wrong it was. When I opened them, he was still watching me, still waiting. And for the first time in years, I didn't want to be good. I don't remember who moved first, only that the space between us disappeared, not all at once but piece by piece. A glance, a breath, the slow lean of someone forgetting how to stay away. He was close now, closer than any man should have been, close enough for me to smell the cedar on his skin, the faint warmth of wine still on his breath, close enough that if I tilted forward even an inch, my mouth would find the hollow of his throat. And I almost did. His hand rested on the couch between us, palm up, not touching me but there, waiting, an unspoken invitation. I stared at it. My own hand twitched in my lap, aching toward him, but I kept it there, frozen in fear and wanting. You're shaking, he said gently. I hadn't noticed, but now that he'd said it, I felt everything. The way my fingers trembled, the tight knot in my stomach, the ache in my chest like something inside me was begging to be seen. I shouldn't feel this way, I whispered. He didn't argue. He just looked at me with that steady, soul-deep stillness of his. Then don't say anything, he said. Just feel what's real. And it was real. That was the worst part. Not a crush. Not some fantasy. It was the way he made me feel present. Like I wasn't someone's wife or someone's employee, or someone playing a role. I was just me. Naked in a way that had nothing to do with clothes. I reached for his hand. Slowly. Fingers barely brushing his. And when I finally touched him, it was like every part of me exhaled at once. He didn't grip me or pull me in. He just turned his palm and let our fingers weave together. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. And still he didn't kiss me. Instead he leaned closer. Not enough to steal anything. Just enough to make me want it so badly it hurt. You don't have to ask, he murmured. I already know. I swallowed hard. My lips parted, but I had no words. Just this unbearable, beautiful weight of being wanted in a way that felt holy and wrong all at once. And still I didn't stop him. Because nothing inside me wanted to be anywhere else. I could feel everything. The weight of the silence. The sound of my own heartbeat, loud and reckless. The warm, steady pulse of his hand still wrapped in mine. I can't, I whispered, though my fingers tightened against his. I know, he said just as quietly. But we already are. And maybe that was the most honest thing either of us had said all night. I should have pulled away. Should have stood up, walked to the door, told him this wasn't who I am. But that was the thing, I wasn't sure anymore. His thumb moved slowly across the back of my hand. Barely there. But the sensation ran all the way up my arm, like a soft ache blooming beneath my skin. My breath caught. I hated how easy it was to lose myself in that feeling. He leaned in again, this time slower. Closer. And I didn't stop him. His forehead rested against mine just for a second. No kiss. No rush. Just that impossible nearness, breath to breath, thought to thought. I've been trying not to want you, he said. I closed my eyes. Me too. And then the space between us vanished. It wasn't a kiss, not at first. It was the moment before. The warm press of his hand at the side of my face, the tilt of his head, the sound of my name caught in his throat like it meant something more. When our lips finally met, it wasn't frantic. It was slow, careful, like we were both afraid of how real it would feel. And God, it did. It felt like my entire body exhaled all at once. Like the part of me I'd been keeping locked away had finally broken free, and didn't care about the wreckage it might leave behind. My hand slid into his shirt, not to take, just to feel. His heartbeat, his warmth, the way his body leaned into mine like he'd been waiting for this as long as I had. I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just there. In it. In him. There's a kind of silence that lives inside surrender. Not peace, not exactly. It's more like stillness before the fall. That's what it felt like with Julian. His hands moved slowly, reverently, like he wasn't trying to claim me, just learn me. And my body answered before my mind could catch up. Every place he touched became a secret. Every breath I took with him tasted like a betrayal I was already addicted to. I don't remember how we ended up on the floor. I remember the slide of his jacket off his shoulders, the rough scrape of my zipper being almost undone, then stopped, held like even he wasn't sure how far he could go before I broke. I remember the pause in his breath when I whispered, "Don't stop." But what I remember most is the look in his eyes. He didn't look at me like I was a mistake. He looked at me like he'd been waiting for this version of me, the one who stopped apologizing for wanting, for needing. His mouth barely a breath from mine, his thumb brushing across my lips like he was trying to memorize the taste of guilt and longing. My sweater was half off my shoulder. His shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the hollow of his collarbone. We were a mess of yes and maybe and God, what are we doing? But we didn't stop. His hands were warm, grounding. My breath hitched with every shift, every graze of skin. It wasn't about how far we went. It was about how far we'd already fallen. At one point he pulled back, just barely, eyes searching mine like he was giving me one last chance to walk away. I didn't. I just reached for him again, because I couldn't go back to pretending. Not tonight. And when his mouth found mine again, slower this time, it felt like we were both saying goodbye to the people we were before this moment. I woke before the sun. The light hadn't reached the windows yet, but the air had shifted, heavier, colder somehow. Julian was still beside me, asleep on his side, one arm draped across his chest like he was holding something in, or maybe keeping something out. His face was soft, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen before. Vulnerable. And I hated how much I loved it. The night echoed in my body, not in a loud screaming way, but like a hum just beneath the surface. My skin still remembered his touch. My lips felt bruised from holding back everything I hadn't said. And then came the ache. Not regret. Not yet. Just awareness. The room looked different in the morning. Colder. The same walls, the same couch, but somehow everything felt exposed. Like the shadows had been covering up the truth, and now there was nowhere left to hide. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake him. My shirt was halfway off, his was somewhere near the bookshelf. My heart was pounding like it didn't know which direction to run. What did I do? What did I just become? The guilt didn't come crashing down. It came quietly, like fog rolling in, soft, consuming. I thought of my husband, of the way he laughs when he's nervous, the way he always warms my side of the bed before I crawl in. And I couldn't breathe. Julian stirred behind me, reaching out instinctively. His fingers brushed my back, and I almost melted into him again. Almost. But I pulled away. "I have to go," I whispered, even though I was already home. He didn't argue. He just sat up, blinking against the morning, watching me with those same dark eyes that had undone me hours ago. "You okay?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just nodded, the kind of nod that breaks something inside you. And then I went to the bathroom, shut the door, and stared at myself in the mirror like I was seeing someone else entirely. I didn't ask him to leave. I didn't need to. By the time I came out of the bathroom, he was dressed, sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like he was memorizing it. There was no anger, no blame, just a quiet kind of sadness, like we both knew something had shifted that couldn't be undone. He stood when I entered, slipping on his coat like it belonged to another version of himself, one that hadn't crossed a line, one that hadn't stayed. "I'm not sorry," he said softly, eyes meeting mine for what felt like the last time. Neither was I. And that was the hardest part. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm. Not possessive, not asking for more. Just a touch that said, "Remember this. I know you'll pretend this didn't happen," he said, voice tight. "But I won't." I nodded because words felt useless, heavy, dangerous. And then he was gone. The door closed behind him, quiet as a secret. I stood there for a long time. The apartment felt emptier than it should have. I touched the edge of the couch where we'd sat, my fingers aching with memory. The air still held the ghost of his cologne, and for a moment, I let myself breathe it in, one last trace of something that couldn't last. Later, I crawled back into bed beside my husband. He stirred, half asleep, pulling me close the way he always did. Like nothing had changed. But something had. It wasn't just what happened. It was what I let happen. What I wanted to happen. And I realized something in that silence. Sometimes crossing the line doesn't feel like falling. Sometimes it feels like finally being seen. And for days afterward, I carried the weight of a whisper. His breath against my skin, and the part of me that would never be untouched again.